Bristol Motor Speedway. It's one of the most difficult tracks in all iRacing, with immense speeds carried around this racetrack and immense pressure to make sure you avoid attrition and avoid the walls. It can be so easy to be bit by the world's last great Coliseum. But tonight, it's going to be a different challenge for many of these competitors, as not only is it Bristol, it's also a season opener. It's time for 2020 Season 4 of the Precision Racing League Cup Series to get underway, and you'll see it live here on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee for the first race of 2020 Season 4 of the PRL Cup Series. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside me in the broadcast booth tonight is the driver of the JTG Donery Racing number 37 Chevrolet Camaro and the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Christian Challoner. Behind the scenes, our director Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Tons of storylines to talk about, but what's the best way around this very difficult track? Let's take a look at your GSRC lap guide to find out the best way around Bristol Motor Speedway.
Welcome to Bristol, the last Coliseum, Thunder Valley, the world's fastest half mile. A driver once described racing here as flying a fighter jet in a high school gymnasium. And after a few laps in the seat, you certainly grasp just what they were talking about. Just over a half mile in distance means that Bristol is one of the shortest tracks that the premier cars on the surface race on. But the 30 degrees of banking in the corners is greater than every track out there except Daytona and Talladega. Using the same technique that other tracks around the country have used, back in 2007, Bristol went to a progressive banking model in the corners. 24 degrees of banking at the bottom lane of the track with 30 degrees up there scraping against the fence. Bristol is also one of the last Premier Series tracks to have two separate pit roads. Each straightaway is just over 800 feet long, so you don't get a lot of time to react in the seat, especially considering the fact that you sail up into the corners at 130 miles an hour. Bristol always keeps drivers on edge. Some drivers even claim that they lose orientation while driving here because the front stretch and the back stretch are so similar to each other. In racing, they say in order to finish first, you must first finish. I don't know if they were thinking about Bristol when they came up with that expression, but by golly does it fit here. All in all, drivers, fans, and even commentators alike all love the Bristol Motor Speedway. This has been our guide to Bristol Motor Speedway. Now strap in and enjoy.
That was a look at your GSRC lap guide for Bristol Motor Speedway. Now let's bring our broadcast partner for this season once again, Christian Challoner, where we've seen a lot of great races over the past few seasons. Now we get ready to see who can conquer this tough track, just a half mile off the circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. A really, really iconic track. Obviously, everybody knows Bristol. Extremely fast half-mile track. Some serious banking in this place. 26 to 30 degrees in the corner. Progressively banked, so you will see a lot of cars running the top line tonight. It is possible to make passes in the middle, and you can save tires just a little bit, but we do expect that most of the racing will be taking place on the top line. And I think, as we've seen in practice, it's pretty tough, but you tell me the fix setup's really good for this week, so hopefully we'll see some good racing.
In my honest opinion, one of the best fixed setups in years with some of the racing. Not too tight, not too loose. As long as you hit your marks, you're likely going to be strong tonight here at Bristol. Now, before we head towards a look towards how last season went, to remind you of the series' sponsors. First, WEBB Hearing Centers. Family owned and operated since 1972. They provide top quality hearing aids and service in Arizona. Visit them at webhearingcenters.com. This series also presented by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products include incredible immersion and bring realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. To feel what you've been missing, go to thebutkicker.com. Take a look at how the championship fared last season. For those who missed the season finale, it was Richard Regan Jr. who won a third straight championship in 2020. He has a chance for the full season sweep, depending on how things fare out by the end of this 10-race campaign. Bradley Hawley, James O'Brien, Joshua Daniels, and Abner Acosta rounded out the top 5 in the point standings. In the team standings, it was AthleteBooker.com eSports who put on an absolute clinic in performance. Just about all the wins went in their organization's direction, with Woodaback Joey Rolls Racing coming home in second. Carl Ramrod, SGE Esports, and Adams Family Racing rounded out the top 5 at the end of 2020 Season 3. Lots to talk about in that regard, but lots to talk about for the race details as we get ready for race number 1, Christian.
Yeah, so round 1 of a new series, so this the PRL series tends to follow along with the A fixed A open schedule, so that's why we're at Bristol here tonight. 160 laps, so not actually a particularly long race. It will go by very, very quickly if we do have green flag running, but of course this is Bristol, so we probably won't see the entire race under green. Fixed setup, and as we talked about, it is quite a good fixed setup this time. No fast repairs, a 24 incident limit, so that could come into play, but also the tire sets. It's 4 in total and 3 in the pits, so there will be a little bit of strategy, especially early on in the race, as to whether drivers want to come down and kind of burn a set of tires real early, because there is some fall off, about 1.4 seconds over a run, so it is an advantage to have those new tires.
Keep in mind that's 1 extra set compared to an A open race, which has been 175 laps throughout the week. Now, practice is currently in its final few moments. Currently, lots of newcomers making some statements early, specifically Brian Abbott. At the quickest time in the final few moments of practice, he had a 14.346 to lead the board. Danny Cervantes, Bradley Hawley, Pat Harvey, Mark Kalin round out the top 5 in the final 30 seconds. Lots of different drivers ready to make their season debuts, or their 2020 debuts, in fact, today in some cases, Christian.
Yeah, definitely quite a few new drivers here, and obviously what a track to be a new driver to a league in. And it looks like we've got kind of a family pairing as well. We've got Robert Corrinson and Greg Carlson in as the 2-car team here, so those guys will be interesting to watch. And quite a number of new drivers actually that we haven't seen, and some returning drivers as well. A little bit disappointed that we don't see Abner Acosta in the field. He was quite a standout last season, but hopefully the new guys will kind of step up.
This track clears up. 5 minutes, 2 solo qualifying laps available. Before we talk about qualifying and the track conditions tonight, I'd like to ask, are you interested in advertising with GSRC? Our channel's 1 million monthly global impressions are a great way to get your branding seen by a diverse audience. Follow the link in the description to learn more about the Global SimRacing Channel. Qualifying now underway with several drivers all set to hit the track. Conditions cooled down as cars went off the track to 79 degrees Fahrenheit, track temp 76 degrees, the air temp partly cloudy skies with very minimal wind once again, 58% humidity. The in-sim day is September the 19th, 2020. So getting ready for what's expected to be a big field tonight, Christian. 34 cars set to qualify.
Yeah, and this is really where qualifying will... It's always crucial, but definitely a track like this, it's mainly crucial to keep yourself out of the action, so to speak, that tends to happen in the mid-pack. So you really do want to make sure that you get in at least a decent lap. Doesn't necessarily have to be anything amazing. As long as it puts you in the top half of the field, you're going to be in a good place to start.
Already at the top of the board, Joshua Daniels with a 14.6. The quickest lap has usually been the second one for qualifying this week at Bristol in either fixed or open competition. But it's not quite easy to put up a good qualifying time because, yes, you can put up consistent race trim in the 14.5s to 7s, but very few people can get up to the 4s and the 3s even in a fixed setup.
Yeah, it's strangely more difficult to get a good qualifying lap than it is a good race lap. As you say, obviously drivers in the race laps can kind of consistently hit those 5s and so on, but the difficulty with the qualifying is with race you kind of can build up to it, you know, it sort of comes naturally. With qualifying, okay, yes, they've had a long practice session, 2 hours and 50 minutes, but the track isn't identical as you change over. Even if the track state's carried over, it always feels a little bit different. It kind of always throws you off just a little bit, so it's a little bit of an unknown when you go out there. It's advantageous to them that the second lap is faster because you get that first lap that you can kind of use to feel it out, but obviously if you scrub the wall on that second lap and that's your money lap, then, well, you start in the back.
And Cervantes currently at the top of the board, by the way, now with a 14.630 as Richard Regan Jr. looking to continue what has been a dominant past couple of seasons. The 46, 3-time champion in this series already this year alone. and looking to add to even more of his victories, has been one of the most dominant drivers in the campaigns of recent memory.
Yeah, absolutely the guy to beat. There's no question about it. Looking a little bit under threat though here tonight. Doesn't seem to have quite the short run pace, but I imagine on long runs we'll see him move to the front quite quickly.
Slowed down the back straightaway, only a 14.7 in qualifying. Chat with him on the drivers now hitting the track. Bradley Hawley not yet to take a time yet. James Duke, James Haney, James O'Brien, Paul Johnson among those to keep an eye on the speed charts to see how they do. But this is a track where we talked about the importance of qualifying already in track position. It's also one where at the same time surviving is important, because here's the difficult part. Some of the starts this week in official racing have been hectic here at Bristol. We're talking 2 to 3 wide. We're talking drivers struggling with grip on cold tires off turn 4. This is not going to be an easy race for any of these competitors to start this off tonight.
Yeah, you have to remember that this is the kind of the fun car, as I like to call it, 750 horsepower, small spoiler, small splitter car. So not really any downforce at all to help you out around a track like this. And obviously, we do see that if the leader holds the restart all the way to kind of the straightaway, so he's on the flat, it makes it really, really difficult to get good bite if you're in those first couple of lanes. And we've seen quite a few times where drivers will have to check up in the mid pull away, and then that creates a stack up cascade behind them. And obviously, then some drivers will try and get around it, duck to the inside, make it 3 wide, and it invariably ends up in some kind of incident for somebody.
Up to second, though, you just seen there, Bradley Hawley just about a 100th of a second off the pole time. Danny Cervantes with the best time overall, 14.630. Then it's Hawley with a 6.40, 6.41 for Pat Harvey. Very tight at the top of the board. That wraps up just about everyone who can hit the track here, Christian. Overall, 28 drivers able to hit times in qualifying. Your thoughts before we head towards our first grid of the season?
Well, I think Danny Cervantes is really one to watch. We've seen him run quite strongly here at Bristol in the past, actually, and I'm not all too surprised to see him take the pole. Obviously, Bradley Hawley himself and Richard Regan Jr. were kind of really going at it for most of last season, so to see him up in second, that's got to be a threat. But then we've also seen some other drivers who've had some really strong runs, such as Pat Harvey. Pat Harvey was really exceptional at saving tires last season, and this was actually a race where he was having a really strong run too, so he's a driver I'm going to be looking out for, and all of them starting in the top 3.
Yes, indeed. It's time to take a look at how they'll start for tonight's race to open up 2020 Season 4 of the PRL Cup Series. On the pole tonight, Danny Cervantes in the 25 machine will start alongside Bradley Hawley. In row 2, it's Pat Harvey for SGE eSports, and a new branding change now for what was AthleteBooker.com eSports, but led first by James O'Brien in P4. We'll talk about that in a few moments. Joshua Daniels starts in 5th tonight with Mark Kalin in 6th position. Keith Haney starts 7th with Scotty Johnson, rounding out row 4. Your 3-time defending champion Richard Regan Jr. starts in 9th, with Robert Besot Jr. rounding out your top 10, Christian.
Colton Lane, the kind of stalwart of the league here, starting in 11th here tonight. James Durr alongside him in 12th. A new driver to the league, Patrick Kogal, in 13th, with Brett Adams alongside him in 14th. We got Adam Zemke in 15th. Paul Johnson's back in P16. Brian Abbott, the driver who topped the practice session, only able to manage a 14.87 in qualifying there, so he starts in 17th. Robert Corzan, a new driver to the series, he's in 18th. Brandon Adams in 19th, and Christopher Williams in 20th.
21st spot goes to Brendan Chatley in the Rescue Racing Machine, with Charles Sumner starting alongside him in his Tropicana machine. Baron Hilton starts 23rd, with Derek Showing 24th, running at the top 26, Greg Corzan and Jose Medina. Bill Loran's back into the field tonight for the first time in a couple weeks, starts 27th, and one of the newcomers rounds out the drivers who took times with Ronald Overbay, that 28th car. Rest of the field features David Wilson Jr., Chad Brown, Nicholas Schwartz, James Duke, and James Haney. On the track, 33 drivers hitting the circuit. Stacy Hunter not able to make it to the circuit to start tonight's race. That's a look top to bottom of your starting grid tonight here from Bristol Motor Speedway. One pace lap before we get rolling. Your keys to victory tonight if you want to start off the season with the W.
Oh, it's absolutely to stay out of trouble. That's really all Bristol is, and especially if you're at the front, it's the easiest way to do it. It is possible to move through the field. It's not easy. Passing will be very, very difficult here tonight. So if you're starting deep in the field, it's going to take you a long time. The race isn't particularly long, there is some options in terms of strategy. I think we will see some drivers elect to stay out if there's an early yellow. I think that will net them some track position, and really it's just make sure you don't make any mistakes such as grab the wall, or don't get involved in anybody else's mistakes, really.
We'll see who can come away with a victory tonight to start off the season. Get ready. It's expected to be a wild season beginner. Charles Sumner among the drivers who will be watching along, while Danny Cervantes among the drivers leading them along. Pace car is off, green flag is out, 2020 Season 4 is underway. In the WEBB Racing oversized car of Danny Cervantes, already up to a 2-car length lead, with Brownie Hawley already up to second spot. Several of the drivers stuck in the bottom, and Colton Lane nearly spun it on the bottom side. Patrick Countgill among the several drivers losing positions already. We stay green.
Yeah, I see a big divergence in lines right now. A lot of drivers are just trying to get to that top side where it's much easier to hang on to the car, and it's generally the faster line as well. But then the drivers stuck on the bottom. Nobody seems to want to be running in the middle. Everybody's trying to run right down at the bottom of the racetrack, and I just don't think there's any grip down there. Obviously, we saw Colton Lane have a big moment. We got someone around on the front stretch.
Regan Jr. got turned around. Caution is out for the first time. Lane and company also stacking up in the middle of 1 and 2. And it was contact with Keith Haney, and apparently it was very tight between their two bumpers down the front stretch.
See, then we saw it's very, very difficult to kind of get slowed down for wrecks that happen up ahead of you. See on the replay there, oh yeah, you see Richard Regan G get turned up into the fence coming past the flags down there, and unfortunately gets collected.
You can see the perfect angle of this right here. We've talked about how important it is to get up to the top. Sometimes you need to be very tight on those moves. Not clear.
Yeah, I think he actually might have just got a little bit tight coming off of the corner there, and that's what pushed him up. And fortunately, no space at this racetrack at all. So everybody behind. It seems strange to say that obviously cars could have seen that all the way back coming out of 4, but it's not that easy. You're going so fast. The straight is really quite short. It is really difficult to actually get the car stopped in time, and that's why we see drivers kind of far back stacking into the wreck.
The drivers already dropping back in pit lane. James Stewart, no. Brett Adams, Derek Schilling, and Colton Lane among the other drivers involved in that stack up you've seen at the bottom of 1 and 2. But mention the importance of getting to the top and being a top dominant track. If you start on the bottom and don't find a hole nearly immediately, you're likely losing 5, 10, 15 spots if you don't find space quickly.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely miserable if you get stuck on the bottom, especially if you're the only person stuck on the bottom as well, because as you say, there's no hole in the line to get into, and that's when you see incidents like that. I really do believe that was more of a mistake than an attempt to get into the top line right there. But we will see times where drivers will try to force their way into the top line, and that will be the result of them either getting turned up or, well, up the track into the fence or down into the runoff at the bottom of the track.
With that, let's talk a little bit about what we talked about at the top of the broadcast with our defending team champions. They had a rebrand. Now they're called Athlete Booker Team Hype. That allows them future opportunities for 2021. Their respective organization looking to expand in the near future, in fact, with how they have been in racing in recent months. They started off very strong for their first campaign as an organization here in 2020 Season 3, looking to capitalize in 2020 Season 4.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously they picked up a lot of race wins, and they were always at the front of the field. So it's good to see them back, and it's good to see them kind of making some headway on that as well. Obviously, yeah, it's been a pretty successful team so far, and it seems like it's going to continue to grow.
Absolutely. The main focus of it, to be specific, was the inclusion of the team name with the title sponsor, provided a future-facing brand that allows for growth, structure, and opportunity for drivers and sponsors alike, with more leagues, drivers, and championships. Focus. Of course, some new paint schemes coming along with that. Joshua Daniels changeup is number 1 and a power change for James O'Brien. Those drivers will be 4th and 5th respectively this upcoming restart. It's Danny Cervantes, your leader. Holly and Harvey, along with O'Brien and Daniels, Kalen, Haney, the Johnsons, Scotty and Paul, along with Deson Jr. inside your top 10. Let's get ready to get back rolling into the restart zone. We're back to green.
Cervantes wasted no time getting going right there. Immediately took the jump and straight to the top line as he was past the flag stand. And I think that's smart. That's one of the best way to hold on to the lead.
And a good launch for the top two. O'Brien actually letting up to let Harvey back in line. Supports to check him on that. So most of the field already worked to the top line, where several others had tried to stick it on the bottom and in turn got loose on the first start.
Yeah, and obviously we saw a lot of drivers who were stuck on the bottom at the first start. They've realized that that's really not where they want to be, and very, very quickly this time got themselves in line. We see a couple of drivers still down there. The 43, Brandon Adams, is still stuck on the bottom. He's actually underneath Richard Regan Jr. right now. Got a hole and he's going to slot him behind.
Now go back towards that 46 because he is wanting to get the bottom to work so hard in 16th position at the moment, where he's sending it very hard, trying to baby that gas and then carry the momentum forward. He's the only person that's actually making this work somewhat.
Yeah, and I mean, he has to try it. He's obviously lost a lot of track position. He's going to be carrying some damage as well, and he's got to make his way forwards if he's got a chance of even finishing inside the top 10 this race at this point.
By the way, Ryan, your live time and scoring is available for this race tonight. Be sure to go to GSRC.tv to keep up with your favorite teams and drivers. Tonight's festivities. Currently, Richard Regan Jr. up to the top line, back to the bottom side to try and fight for 13th position. Among the teams that are new for the season, Derek Showing, Peak Speed Motorsports, PPG Racing, picking up David Wilson Jr. And one person saying hello to mom and dad is right up in front of him.
A little bit of action further back in the field. Baron Hilton down on the apron. There's another car involved too, but I'm not sure who it was. Looks like they've got it gathered up and going again though.
Yes, nice and clean for the time being. It was Dewar who had that specific issue. He's in the 55, already a lap down in this race. But say you're in this position where you know you're quicker than the cars in front, but also know that you need to be on the top line to try and make a move. How would you attack this to try and make the pass?
I mean, this is so difficult for him because he's got this line of 3 cars here. You see Sumner there at the back. Now go to his top side. He doesn't really have any option but to stay down on the bottom right now. Personally, I'd be trying to run up more in the middle of the track. I feel like there's more grip there than there is right on the bottom. Playing the bottom extremely loose, and I would kind of try and run the middle, try and get a little bit more exit speed, and hope that allows me to kind of slot in into the top line by the time you get to the next corner. But it's absolutely not easy, and especially at night when the track speed is just so high, it's even harder to make those kind of passes work.
Here's a perfect example of how we try to explain this. Top drivers at the front of the field are running 15 flats. The back half, 15 fours. Normally you'd be thinking, oh, that's no big deal. It's only a half-mile racetrack. Pass completed there, and the 31's up into the wall. Cowgill hits the right front against the fence, loses a couple spots, though we stay green.
Really good save. I know he had to use the wall a little bit to straighten it up, but definitely preferable to spinning down the racetrack and getting into that inside wall.
Heading up towards second spot, Bradley Holly and Pat Harvey are nice and close at the moment. Only about 0.4 of a second behind Danny Cervantes at the moment.
Cervantes is got quite a nice time right now until he gets to lap traffic, which is going to be pretty much this lap.
Yes, indeed, and there's Derek Showing on the bottom side after the first incident. A little bit of tail wiggleness there, too, and Holly a bit loose. And that's the difficult part with this fix set this week. You press the gas too hard or burn up the right rear, you're not going to have a fun time.
Yeah, that does mean that there's a good deal of difference the driver can make, though, because obviously the smoother they are on the gas pedal, the better they're going to hold on to that right rear tire, and it's going to give them an advantage in the long run. So that's why I'm definitely keeping an eye on Pat Harvey. His car looks like it's on a rail right now. He's not sliding at all coming off of any corner.
See the two blue cars there, O'Brien and Daniels also in this, but lap traffic can make things difficult here because they're already approaching it to the point where they're going in different lines. Some of the cars going up top, some of them going middle, some of them going bottom here.
And James Duke there in the 76 on the bottom line now, going very slowly. I think he had his own incident Matt Harvey just tagged the wall there. It didn't slow him down too much. Won't be any significant damage either, but just gives you an idea of the challenge of just getting around the racetrack and navigating the lap cars. It really takes all of your focus.
And the tough thing on this too is, some of them, remember, are going to be fighting for position, maybe side by side. That can in turn cost you as a lead car position.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you got to consider that the 18th position right now is only about 6.5 seconds behind, so they're coming up to being roughly half a lap behind the leaders. So you think by the time we get to lap 60, if it stays green, the leaders are probably going to be in amongst that huge fight that's going on, and obviously those drivers are having their own battle. They don't want to be in the way of the lead fight, but they're not going to move offline because it's going to hurt them as much as it's really going to help the leaders.
And Baron Hilton, by the way, is that car right up in front of the race leaders, still has not moved. That's Rescue Racing's driver, respectively, by the way, with the new look this season. Holly, I think, is looking to potentially even pounce here, because Sumner, I think, is going to get a bit more impatient with the traffic already now a few car lengths up the road. You see double Y.
Yeah, and this is pretty much the entire top 5 here, all nose to tail at this point. See the 44 is elected to go to the bottom of the racetrack and try and move his way out of the way. The 09 now stuck on the bottom of the racetrack.
One of the drivers who crossed over for the non-broadcasted league last season in 2020 Season 3. That's one of the Adams Family Racing machines also moved to the bottom side. They're starting to bump and bang each other, though, at the head of the line, though. I believe that's Brett Adams that's now leading this train of cars, and still the leaders have not been able to try and get by those two.
Yeah, and this is the thing, really. This has obviously been a bit of an opportunity for everybody in the top 5 to close up, but it's dangerous to try and make moves at this point as well. Right now we see Cervantes really just trying to get past the 23. Sounds like some contact further behind, but we stay green.
Back Doyle Lawrence among those drivers who had a bit of contact with these leaders, trying to hope that they don't get in contact of their own. There's the newcomer, Ronald Overbay, letting the cars go. Having to go down to the bottom side this time. And again, it's about the predictability that you want here at Bristol. If you have to stagger out the lap traffic, that's where the big ones can in turn happen. At the same time, if your consistent line is the racing line, well, it can be frustrating. It is understandable, though, if you're racing for the last car in the lead lap like that purple and yellowish machine is.
Yeah, and that's really been the interesting thing right here with Baron Hilton. He's now actually electing to let the lead pack go, but for that entire time he was sat on the nose of the leaders. He did actually make up some positions as those cars moved out of the way to let the lead pack by. They actually let Baron Hilton pass at the same time.
That actually may be a sneakily smart call there, because he is quicker than those cars. One of the cars up the road you see on the bottom of the racetrack, believe that is James Haney in 31st position, who has been having a bit of a rough one, already at tail end of the 1 lap down cars, ready to go 2 laps down for the first time.
You see Haney running at the very bottom of the racetrack there, almost actually on the apron, just trying to get out of the way of that top 5. James Duke there as well on the apron, just exited pit road, I believe.
Yes, indeed. Duke just came into the pits after 2 minutes of damage repair. Currently things calming back down, but a bit of scrapping starting to form up in all of this. Kalen and Johnson have just swapped spots after some of the traffic factored in. In fact, apologies over the radio with some of the said traffic. Also some position swaps in the teams. Other than that, Travers trying to just get into a rhythm here. By the way, Regan Jr. is among the drivers just behind this. He was about 10 car lengths back behind that red car you see.
Yeah, Regan Jr. trying to make his way through, almost a 3 wide right there.
Yeah, he's trying to put up some decent laps. 16 threes in open space. The lead cars up to the 15 sixes. And here's the thing with the back end. You can get away with a lot of damage here at this track, but there is limitations to it, Christian, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not a mile and a half or a 2 mile, say like a Michigan or something like that. So it's not as detrimental to performance. But obviously the speed's still pretty high. You're still getting up to about 140, nearly 150 around this racetrack. So it's not like it's a slow place. Aero does matter, even if it's only just in a drag sense. And obviously he got hit pretty hard too.
Oh, the battle for the race lead is getting very ugly now, with the traffic going 2-3 wide. Into the race leaders, that's where Doyle Lawrence is in company. All of them are trying to figure out where to go here in all this. As they finally get into a single file line, they were nearly running each other over. In fact, Holly got by for second on all of that.
Yeah, Cervantes must just not know what to do right here. He's got two cars side by side ahead of him, but he can't really afford to wait up. He's got to get going, otherwise Holly's going to pounce on him.
Yes, indeed, and a bit of a checkup. The leader's now bumping and banging. No nose damage on Cervantes. Holly, though, got a huge shot to the front nose. That may cause a problem.
Yeah, there's a big stack up right there that we saw. Cervantes really being unkind to the lap car, trying to get him out of the way right now. Obviously, these guys don't want to be in this pack any more than they have to. Cervantes to the bottom this time to make that pass work. Holly's going to try and follow him behind. We've got Pat Harvey. Josh Daniels is a little bit further back in this group. He's kind of got Colton Lane and a couple other cars in between him. He's really getting bottled up and losing a lot of time to this lead three.
Yes, and they are sticking to the racing line. There is that argument from some drivers where it's your job as a lead car to try and pass me cleanly. And in turn, they try and run their own race. Now, the fight between the top three has a buffer, all because of that Fredericksburg Fitness Studio car in its season debut. Welcome to PRL.
Yeah, I mean, this is really not a nice track to be introduced to any league. So I do feel for those guys that it's their first race, and obviously, kind of you don't want to be involved in any incidents in your first race.
Oh, crash front straightaway, contact with the lap cars. The 11 into the fence. Robert Corson made contact with that car. We stay green, but a hard hit for that beige's car. Let's take a look. And that's Greg Corson he ended up hitting.
That's not going to go down well, and that's again a similar incident that we saw with Richard Megan Jr., where the car on the bottom just drifted up and ended up trying to chop the nose of the car in the top lane, and there's just no way that there's space for the top car to actually really even back out of that. It just happened so quickly, and another car turned into the fence, and very, very lucky that didn't end up in a much bigger incident.
That, by the way, was all in front of drivers like O'Brien or like Besant Jr. and company. Could have been very ugly.
Oh! Cervantes is around!
They're crashing over. Big crash in front of the second pack of lead cars. The leader's also involved in the crash. Several cautions as Holly is now up to the front. Daniels and company also involved in a massive one in turn one.
That looked like a lot all of a sudden all happened at once. I'm not sure who it was that was actually in front of Cervantes at the time, but there was a big incident in front of them. Everybody kind of got it sorted out, but then Cervantes was really checked up, and he just got half spun from behind.
It was Nicholas Schwartz, believe, in Overbay first off, with Overbay smacking the wall in his series debut. That caused the checkup here. Holly and them saved it, but the caution trigger was the massive one that happened at the exact same time, where drivers all here had to check up for that massive track blocker.
You see Doyle Lawrence in that incident there.
Take a look here from up top, as I believe that was one of the Haney's as well right there. More hits as the whole track got blocked. Nowhere for Daniels to go. He was one of the drivers who got hurt the most in the lead group.
And that's the challenge of getting through traffic at Bristol. If an incident happens, there's nowhere to go. The road is closed, and unfortunately for Daniels, he just had nowhere to go right.
Look on the bright side, at least there's a caution to allow drivers to take 4 tires for the first time with the respective sets. One driver did stay on the racetrack this time, though, Greg Corson, who was involved in that previous trouble spot. So it's a chance for drivers to get some fresh rubber here, which, again, this could open up a whole card of strategies, because some drivers have waited up to 80 laps in official races, Christian, for their first stops, because the tires, compared to last year, feel like Superman with fresher tires compared to older ones.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. But as you mentioned before the race got going, they do have one extra set compared to the A Opens and the A Fixed, and the race is a little bit shorter, so they can't afford to burn them up. The difficulty here is going to be actually fixing any damage. There's barely a clean car in the field. There isn't anybody who hasn't really been involved in some kind of incident, and we're only 59 laps into the race.
Yeah, the pace laps here are fairly quick, about 40-50 seconds. That's maybe only about 20-30 seconds you get repaired, and that's if you're willing to sacrifice the track position, because as we've seen, you can get more damage by trying to cut through the field, as we've seen already today.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've also got to remember that this is the change to the single pit lane configuration as well. So pit road is extremely long in comparison to what drivers might be used to at this track. It's no longer half of the racetrack. You have to enter coming off of turn 4, and you're exiting pretty much coming into turn 3. So it's not as it was, and it is harder to get damage fixed at this racetrack.
Race off pit road, seen Holly Cervantes, Harvey O'Brien, Kalen, by the way, the top 5, Johnson, Paul Johnson specifically. We saw Junior Keith Haney, Scotty Johnson, County among the top drivers off the lane as they get ready for an upcoming restart. Still, under 100 laps to go. It's been a fairly entertaining race so far.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of good racing. We've obviously seen some incidents and a lot of fights that have involved lap cars, but it has made it. It's going to be a hard-won victory for sure.
Rick Orton, by the way, Lucky Dog will have to start behind several of the lap cars, just 19 on the lead lap after one of the longer runs this week in fixed competition. Green flags back out. Great launch by Holly.
Yeah, huge jump by Holly there. Definitely wants to get out front. And this is an opportunity whilst the whole field's backed up to really make some headway before you get into the lap cars.
Already the fight on a bit for second. Back to single file, though. One driver is losing several spots. That's Kalen you've seen stuck on the bottom side.
She got some contacts up ahead already. I believe that was the 44 having a big moment through turn 1. Nicholas Schwartz.
I believe so as well, as you see Kalen stuck on the bottom as well. A couple drivers did have to come down and serve your penalties or have to go down for more service. There's Schwartz, in fact, back to his stall again in the 44. And I think he missed it.
Yeah, that's rough. A pit stop under green at Bristol isn't a fun time. That's a lot of time lost. So to miss the box and have to go around again, that's really going to put him out of any kind of contention for this race.
Already very tight with some of the traffic we mentioned. Keith Haney, one of the cars involved in trouble. 10th. Here's O'Brien for 4th, though. Just set the fastest lap, in fact, to 14.78.
O'Brien in his 4th spot. We've seen O'Brien have some really good runs and obviously a very, very competitive driver, so he's definitely in the fight for this race victory right now.
Last season, 2 victories, 8 top 5s, 9 top 10s, and a pole. All mixed in for a 3rd place championship finish. So he is a competitive driver. Remember, teammate to Reagan Jr. along with Daniels this season once more.
Yeah, exactly, and obviously he can get the job done. I think he's going to need to get past 2 of these guys at least within the next 20 or so laps. If he waits any longer, it's going to be a tall order to clear 3 cars if the race stays green.
Both of them using fairly similar lines all the way up as high as they can to the wall. Great exit, though, for Harvey. Ripping away nearly 2nd spot. Can he complete the pass? Might be able to on the exit. Yes.
It looked like a little bit of a mistake from Cervantes there, but it also does look like the damage is hurting him quite a bit. He doesn't seem to have near the straightaway speed of the cars around him, and I think that's what allowed Pat Harvey to pull that pass off, because normally we see the car on the bottom can't really do a lot in terms of corner exit. They struggle to get the power down. Harvey looking really racy at this point. Just tagged the wall a little bit, but that's not going to slow him down at all.
I believe he nearly bumped the back end of the Ford Mustang in front. Harvey looking like he's found something, trying to dime in the corner it looks like, to try and use the banking as a ramp for the straights to get momentum for the apex of 3.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a different strategy that we're seeing from Harvey to what we've seen in the past. In the past, we've seen him kind of really wait a very long time and then use a big long-run tire advantage to make his moves. But here, going for it right from the go, definitely not tire saving to the extent that we've seen from him in the past.
There is lap traffic up the road about to be reached soon. That's James Duke Ronald Overbay, you see, up in front of the leaders. So they will have to go to the Hornet's Nest yet again if this run continues.
It actually kind of looks like the pack's somewhat concertinaing back up at this point. You see the 3 of Bristol Jr. is still just over a second behind the leader, and that puts 5 cars pretty much within a second for the lead of the race. And That's not something that you'll see after such a run of green flag already.
By the way, one of your biggest movers of the race is in this lead pack. Paul Johnson is up 11 spots in that 14. Couldn't buy luck, and now they have to try and buy some horseshoes with the traffic. Just a major checkup up in front.
Yeah, and that's put everybody inside the top 10 back into this fight now. It's just a big conga line of cars on the top.
Here's a look on board with Johnson, and last season he had some strong performances here and there, but also was involved in a lot of trouble here and there. Tonight, nice and clean car. He's got one of the cleanest cars in the top 5 still.
Yeah, coming from 16th to have a car that's completely clean, that's really impressive stuff at Bristol.
Still hard to make sure you don't get involved in trouble. Just 3 top 10 finishes, 2020 season 3. Daniels among the drivers you see now trying to make a peak, though, looking like he's now getting a little bit impatient in line with his teammate Richard Regan Jr. now following suit as well in the 7746. That's what the 07 of Scotty Johnson.
And this definitely looks like Bradley Holly is trying to save some tire, and it's kind of stacking everybody behind him. It's very subtle, but it's just enough to be keeping everybody packed up. We can kind of see in the middle of the corner, Pat Harvey's getting checked up just a little bit. Cervantes then gets checked up behind him, and it's keeping everybody on each other's bumpers, and it's actually making it really difficult for anybody to try and pull off a pass, because as soon as they move out of line, if they don't complete the pass, they're immediately vulnerable to the next car.
Battle for the race lead is on. Pat Harvey's had enough. He wants to make the move on Hawley. Onto the middle line. Hawley trying to get the exit, makes contact. Both of them hold on to it, still side by side.
And Harvey knows that he needs to get this done, because otherwise he's going to lose all these positions if he doesn't get some momentum. But at the same time, you can't just push up the racetrack like that. You know that Hawley's there.
Harvey looking like a little bit quicker. Able to send it hard on the apex. Can he slide up for the race lead? No, give space. Harvey just about got it there, but I think he might be able to do it right here.
Yeah, I think he was too nice right there. He was definitely clear as he got off the corner. He should have just swept straight up. Does get the job done, but it could have gone the other way right there. If Holly had got some good momentum going, it was going to be difficult for Harvey to complete that pass.
Do you think Holly is saving the tires? Remember, he has that front grille damage, Christian. If you have the grille damage, even 12.5 seconds, depending on how much tape that can cause your temps to skyrocket, can that be a possibility? If that's
actually very true. I hadn't thought about that, but then that would be even more reason for him to want to maintain the lead, so that he always had kind of fresh air on the grill. But that is a good point. Obviously, it's difficult to keep temperatures under control at the best of times, and even more so at a track like Bristol.
Contact crash for P4 and 5. Danny Cervantes turned around against the wall. Caution is out. And another car saying hello to him with this bumper. That's Cowgill. Not making a good impression with that one.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate right there. But again, it was the same kind of incident that we've seen pretty much all night. A car in the bottom lane trying to get back to the top, and just, I don't want to say turning themselves, but it's definitely a kind of a meeting in the middle sort of point.
He was pried off the wall essentially by O'Brien. Johnson took suit, and then, looking at her glance, it looked like right there Besaw Jr. got loose and actually swept down just a touch.
Yeah, it actually wasn't the car on the bottom this time. Really unfortunate for Cervantes right there. As you say, Beastal Jr. just got loose a little bit, had that wiggle, but that wiggle's enough to send you down the racetrack, and even worse for Cervantes to get collected by another car afterwards.
See that right on board. He's able to chug along, but it's not an easy track to see if there's a car against the wall even. And in turn, you don't know that. It's hard to stop if you have a car right in front of you, 10 car lengths.
Yeah, exactly, and big damage there for Beasor. Obviously, he had that car right on his nose and kind of pushed it along the racetrack too.
Front nose on the number 3 machine, and more pit stops. Second set of tires being used, and now I'm curious how this plays out for the final set now, because if it ends up going to laps, now we can see anyone come down at any time if they elect to do so, or in turn just not use the set at all and keep the track position.
Yeah, this is going to be really difficult. Obviously, they hadn't actually had a particularly long green flag run there. It's certainly not like what we saw at the beginning of the race. So kind of surprised to see so many drivers coming down to get a fresh set, but obviously they do have quite a few sets, so it's not so critical, but it does put them in a little bit of a box now to only have that one set left.
Well, they did already have fall off to the 15-3s and 4 some of the lead cars. Lead car off the pit lane was Pat Harvey, then O'Brien, Johnson, Daniels, Bisson Jr. On those who came down. By the way, that's Brian Abbott having to let cars go there this time, after he did not stop in his box and has to let everybody on by. As a result as well, a couple cars looking for the wave as well here. But one thing I want to mention, of course, is we talked about it at the end of the last broadcast for 2020 Season 3, and as well have been in 2020 Season 1, is the overall series championship is a new feature where a driver must participate in 20 of the 30 scheduled races during those respective seasons, from 2020 Season 1 to last season. In turn, they compete for a full series calendar championship. In this respective season, on points, Richard Regan Jr., Joshua Daniels, and Pat Harvey, by the way, are the top 3 in that. That's going to be something to keep an eye on just a little bit, and adds an extra layer to the championship for this year.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's interesting to see a league try to kind of have an overarching season, especially when they do kind of 4 split-up seasons the same way that the iRacing seasons work out. So it is interesting to see how that overall championship's going to pan out. I think realistically the favorite for that still has to be Richard Regan Jr., though, just based on how strong he's been all season. Well, all year even.
I mean, when you win 16 of the 30 races, yeah, you're going to be a favorite. 1 to go this time, as Pat Harvey and James O'Brien 1-2 for the restart, Christian. Here we go. See how they launch, and a good launch for the Toyota.
Yeah, Harvey elected to wait a little bit longer than we've seen some of the other leaders do, but able to get to the top side. See Paul Johnson running the bottom. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to clear James O'Brien, but he is going to be able to get back in. Whether he gets in ahead of that 77. The 46 has had a huge moment in 3 right there. He's going around on the exit of 4.
Massive crash. Hawley's in it. Sumner's in it. Once again, caution flag is out. And a massive parking lot at the back end of the straightaway as well.
That looked like it all started with Richard Regan Jr. having that moment on the entry to 3. He's bringing it immediately into pit road. Big damage on that 46 for the 2nd time tonight.
Taking a look down, was in the fight with the 07, just right there, a bit of a snap. And just couldn't get it saved. And then there was a 2nd car who lost at the same time.
Yeah, big wreck actually happening further back there. We saw obviously those cars at the front. Charles Sumner unfortunately collected Richard Regan Jr., but then there was a secondary incident that was happening behind, collected another 4 to 5 cars.
That was Christopher B. Williams from 20th spot who caused the 2nd crash in the Blue Stars car. Take a look. I'm going to take another look at this. This is, as you can see, very loose off the corner and right into your top driver in practice, and blocks the track here and collects, well, everybody about the back end of the top 10-ish in 20.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of wreck that I was talking about, where it seems almost comical that drivers are still kind of piling in, but you cannot see. You really cannot see when you're coming around the corners at Bristol. So you just have to hope that the track is clear. Yes, you will get a warning that there's a car around from the spotter. You'll see a yellow flag and whatnot. But it's so hard to get the car stopped. So I have a lot of sympathy with all the drivers who kind of stacked in there, because it's not near as easy as you'd think to get the car stopped before you get into those wrecks.
There are some DNFs now in all of this. I'm on the list. Richard Regan Jr., the only driver technically done for the night, just left the garage. Well, Showing and Schwartz have been in the garage much of this race, with Robert Orzen, Brett Adams, Danny Cervantes among the drivers who have not come out after some of these cautions. So, a bit of a rough one, to say the least now. I'd like to remind those who are watching for the first time, there is a 1-hour time limit for this respective series. Does that start becoming a factor now if you're thinking about how to play this? Because it did become an interesting wrinkle at Bristol in the spring, where Regan Jr. pit for tires for the last restart of the race by accident.
Yeah, exactly. If I remember correctly, he didn't believe that there was only 2 minutes to go. He was just looking at the lap counter and thought he would have enough time to move his way back forwards. Obviously, Bristol just not being a great place for him. We saw him kind of dominate the race last time too, but tonight just just not really having a good race at all. I've been involved in quite a number of incidents before I finally decided to park the car.
There is one drop week in this respective series, in this championship, once again for the season title. Let's take this time to talk about some of the tracks too, because it's a mix of normal tracks as mentioned with the A regular official calendar, and some different ones here and there. Las Vegas, Talladega, the Roval, Kansas, Texas, Martinsville, Phoenix, Homestead. Then here's this for a finale, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. What a way to try and win a championship there.
Yeah, I think that track's going to be absolutely wild. That's going to be almost Bristol-like in nature. It's extremely rough. It's extremely difficult to get around there, even in some of the lower-powered cars. I can't imagine what it's going to be like to get around there in the high-powered, low-downforce Cup car.
I can tell you this: some of the first races there. It is one of the most popular short tracks already on the entire iRacing service. One of its most difficult tracks, about to get back on her way though for Green Flag Racing. 61 to go. Harvey on the gas once more for the launch.
Harvey didn't make the same mistake as last time. Went much earlier, much easier for him to get to the top of the racetrack when he got to turn 1.
Dave Haney has now had some trouble for the 85 machine. He's been given a connection warning, in fact, from race control at the back part of the field. All of this is while Joshua Daniels up to second, passing by his teammate O'Brien.
And a good move on the start there. Obviously not easy to pass around this racetrack as we've seen, so you can get it done within a couple of laps of the restart. That's really when you want to get it done, because that's when you've got the best tires, and that's when it's really easiest to pull off the passes.
Purple lap of the race, now by Pat Harvey. It's a 14.714. Puts him up at the top of the board, make it a 14.712 next time. Round that up to a 14.713 to the 10,000. So the track is getting quicker on the fresher tires once again. This has been a tendency in open racing this week.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see how Pat Harvey holds on over this run, if we get a green flag run to the end of the race, because as I mentioned before, the last season, last couple of seasons really, it's the tire saving aspect that's been really strong with him. So to see him kind of just be bolting out of the gate right now, already pulling out to a 0.5, it's down to 0.483 now, lead, it's going to be interesting to see if he's sacrificing a little bit of that long run performance, because that might make him vulnerable if the race stays.
James Duke moving to the bottom this time to move out of the way for the race later over the radio, just clarifying that. Daniels and O'Brien gain another 1/10 of a second. All this, too, could be interesting on how drivers like David Wilson Jr. capitalize for the early points, because you never want to use a drop at a tough track, so to speak, or really at all. He is up 21 positions tonight, as mentioned with the new team this season.
Yeah, he's having a great night, and obviously didn't set a qualifying time, but he was there or thereabouts when it came to the practice time, so it's not like he was way back on pace and he's just kind of got lucky here. He's actually got himself up in a good position. He's able to maintain, and he's going to have a great night here if he can finish in the top 10, having started right at the back.
And the one thing you see on this onboard is he's sending it a little bit deeper than the other cars around him, because usually your brake marks for the best of the best can be around the UNOH sign in the front stretch, if not the Food City 500 sign. Then in turn 3, around that Food City 500 sign, right about here-ish to the ZMAX sign, give or take. He's sending it a little bit deeper, and that's what's gaining him a little time on entry. Just can't take it anywhere yet.
Yeah, and that's a case where it's pretty easy to kind of burn off your tires, because as you say, he's driving in deep, he's gaining, but then he's not able to make use of that. So he's kind of wearing, heating out that right front, and he's not able to actually extract any benefit of it because his car's right in front of him.
Kalen smacks the wall, got loose on the entry. Believe he may have scraped the wall, in fact. And now the 62 bouncing off the wall, finally able to stabilize it. Also, Chatley smacked the wall, trying to avoid that as well.
And it always seems to be when they're coming up to lap cars, or when you've got a two-wide situation. Not sure whether the drivers on the top lane are just trying to give a little bit more space. It's putting them on a little bit of a tighter arc when they get to the exit of the corner, and that's what's making it difficult for them, because we're seeing a lot of snap moves right around corner exit when drivers are in these two-wide situations.
Head up towards the front. The top four pulled away because of the modified Abisaw Jr., where Harvey leads by 7/10. It's Daniels, O'Brien, and Johnson trying to get chased, though. Problem is, they're either dead even or losing time as this run progresses to this man up at the front, Pat Harvey.
Yeah, Harvey's still continuing to stretch away, and I think he might just be trying to build a gap before he gets into the lap traffic. We've seen every time so far when they get to lap traffic, Constantine is the pack up. It has caused a swap for the lead. Obviously, we saw with Holly and Cervantes. So you don't want to be hanging around, and if you can be the first to get to a lap car, clear it before anybody else gets near it, I think that's actually probably the best approach.
100% on that one. As you take a look at the air cars just running the same line here. At this point, what do you do if you're, say, these cars? Because you're not gaining time, you're losing time now. They lost another 10th or two trying to just get around the car who was already on the bottom.
Yeah, this group of three has kind of got a bit of a difficult situation going on, because I don't think there's a great deal of difference in speed between any of them. But at the same time, Pat Harvey is continuing to get away, and they're kind of in this sort of no man's land. I mean, it's a great result to kind of be in the top 5, second, third, and fourth like this, but at the same time, you want to go for the win, right?
110%. If you feel like you've got the pace, you want to win the race. You aren't going to be satisfied with the silver medal or participation trophy. There's a reason, there's a saying, you're not first, you're last.
That's very true, and I don't know whether these drivers are just kind of waiting, and obviously it's a little bit of an advantage to not be the leader, because I say that, I mean that in a sense of in context in terms of traffic. If you're the leader, you're the first person to wake everybody up as you get there, and then after that, everybody's kind of more aware, and it is a little bit easier, especially if you're following the leader through lap cars, because the leader has already kind of moved the lap car out of the way for you, so you can just sort of follow through. It's not as challenging an exercise as it might be for the leader itself.
Let's take a look towards the fight for 6, because here's the tough part, again, with the top line being dominant. When you have Abisaw Jr. with the modified, it's going to lose you some time. He's running some more pace, yes, to the cars around him, but everybody else knows he's got damage, and if they don't get around him, they're going to lose more and more time as this run goes on.
And Chatley not wasting time there, pulling the slider on him, and honestly, that's what needs to be done. That car's modified, as you say. It's definitely not got the pace. You see Colton Lane there having a big moment. He's had some incidents tonight, but he's actually still running inside the top 10. He's 9th right now.
And as long as you keep the car clean and they're consistent, you can recover in this race. We've seen that example there. Change for second spot nearly as O'Brien and Daniels went side by side at the front, by the way. Daniels now trying to pull away from the 9 machine once again after they were side by side up the front.
Looks like Daniels has made the decision that he wants to go.
I believe so, as O'Brien tried to catch back up on the later break. And boy, again, they are now about 1.5 seconds back, with Daniels just checking out in what has been his most dominant performance in a while. But see that double white traffic up ahead? That's going to potentially change a lot, as we've been racing several times tonight.
Yeah, Harvey's just going to start catching up to that kind of back portion of the field that's still sort of running competitively. So 11th on back, really. And that's quite a gaggle of cars that he's going to have to get through. So he needs to be efficient at that. Obviously, we see Daniels is now in second. He's going to be trying to run him down. And it's going to come down to how quickly Harvey can get his way through those lap cars. And I tell you, if he gets through those and then he starts getting up to this group that's sort of got Colton Lane, that's a huge group of cars. That's going to be really, really difficult for him to cut through. Fortunately, that's about another 8 seconds up the road from him.
Jack-up accordion effect coming up as Schilling's trying to get around a car, and Chad Brown, though able to move out of the way in the 64 machine, who's had it up and down past a couple of seasons. And that, however, loses all these cars another half a second. Still, look at the bright side. At least you're not Pat Harvey, where you have to deal with 5 lap cars right now, including Adam Semke, who is in a brand new number this season in the 57. Not using his normal number this season, in fact. Over the radio, he looked to try and change up his number to catch people off, and now the caution is out. P9 Brendan Chatley involved.
That is not what Pat Harvey is going to want to see. It's going to pull everybody back up to him. Yes, it's going to give him a little bit of an advantage on that restart. He won't have to deal with lap cars as much. But still, he checked out.
That's not going to make him quite happy here, and opens up the strategy floodgates as massive accordion effect. Doyle Lawrence there with a checkup and several others. A couple hits as well from some of the other lap cars behind him.
Yeah, that was unfortunate for Lawrence there. He was trying to check up to avoid turning a car into the fence, and unfortunately, the guys behind him just weren't able to do that and turn Doyle instead. So that's a really difficult situation because there's nothing that he could have done differently right there. He was either going to turn a car across his nose or unfortunately get turned around himself. So that's really rough.
14 cars down with the lead lap, Zemke the lucky dog, and just about every single lead lap car did come down to use their final set. Surprisingly, no one trying a different strategy call here.
And I think you've got to really. There's 25 laps to go right now. Probably going to be about 22, 23 laps to go when we get the green. I don't see a reason that you would want to come down and pit after that point, especially with 14 on the lead lap. You're going to go all the way back there. As we've seen, it's not easy to pass on the bottom, especially a double file restart. I don't think we'll see it single out like it's been doing towards the beginning of the race. I think we're going to see drivers more keen to stay double file at this point, trying to make those passes work.
So for no strategy call differences, in fact for tires, the name of the game to be expected, 39 to 46 laps on some of the drivers' stints on those tires. This caution, Harvey, Daniels, O'Brien, Johnson, and Scotty Johnson rounded out your top 5. So two of the Johnsons are now going to be in the top 5 when we get back underway. As mentioned, Zemke was that lucky dog. So closing stages, if there is precautions though during this stage, time can play a factor. We are about 15 minutes or so, give or take, left in the clock.
Yeah, it could go down to a time-limited race. I do think we should be able to get this in, though. Obviously, the laps around here are very, very quick. It's about 4 laps per minute, so we've definitely got the time to get this done. But at the same time, obviously, there's the potential for so many more yellows at this point. We know that drivers are going to be more aggressive coming down to the end of the race, and I think we should expect probably at least one more yellow.
By the way, for those wondering, why are there so many cars in front of the leaders? Again, several drivers were pinned 1 lap down, and this is their only chance likely left to get the wave, unless they get the lucky dog. So Chad Brown, Doyle Lawrence, Bradley Hawley, Keith Haney, Christopher Williams, among those drivers taking the wave this time. One to go signal, now on the track.
And that's another factor in this as well. We've got all those cars taking the wave around who are going to be out there on old tires, but still kind of fighting in amongst themselves to get their track position just on the off chance that another yellow does come out, so they can come down and get their final set of tires.
If they have the set available, that's the main key. If they check uncheck the tires and pits. Still though, Pat Harvey, Joshua Daniels 1-2. Pace car is off. Green flag back up.
Harvey again with the early jump, straight to the top side. Doesn't want to give any opportunity to Daniels to make that pass. Daniels gives him the bumper in the middle of the corner. Surprised he actually even got to the back of Pat Harvey there.
Maybe try to get a gas, and Pat Harvey's in the fence. He now goes around, nearly hits the inside wall, and now is stuck against the inside wall. Pat Harvey, in his most dominant performance in the past year and a half, throws it away with 20 to go this time.
That was very, very strange. I don't believe that he made a mistake. It actually looked like something kind of fired his car up into the wall right there, because he was tracking the arc.
Oh, and it's now Besant Jr. collected with Scotty Johnson. Back under yellow again. Oh man, now time could become a factor.
Yeah, that's so rough right there.
Let's take a look. Yeah, Lane got loose. Lane got loose and hooked him.
Almost the invert of the incident that Besant Jr. himself was involved with right there. We saw Besant Jr. turn a car down, and this time it was him getting turned.
And take a listen and wait for turn 3 entry, because if you send it too hard on the brakes, there's a chance you overcorrect. Listen.
Oh yeah, so that was his own doing. As you say, just drove in too deep. The back end started to get away from him and straight into the wall. That's so disappointing for Pat Harvey. He's going to be so mad at himself for that mistake right there.
He's come close a couple times with several top 5s in the past 3 seasons, but never a win. Tonight could have been his night, not so much now. He's now 17th with one more Lucky Dog car also going around there. That is James Haney. So a rough break for Pat Harvey after being so quick.
Yeah, that's going to be one that he'll remember that for a while, and he definitely won't make that same mistake again. Just a really hard lesson to learn at that point as well. Obviously, being the leader, it's such a short run to the end that he was going to have, and obviously he had the pace to do it. We've seen all night he's been able to get away on those short runs, so that's going to be very disappointing.
So now it's James O'Brien, by the way, in the lead. Paul Johnson second, Joshua Daniels, Colton Lane, and Scotty Johnson, who was just in the last caution, running up the top 5. So now this opens up the floodgates for O'Brien to add what would be a 3rd win in the past 11 races in PRL Cup Series action, but a bigger chance for Paul Johnson, who has been known in the past for some of his troubles on the track. Now might be able to make a splash and win with this Ford.
Yeah, and this group of 3 that we've got at the front, James O'Brien, Paul Johnson, Joshua Daniels, have actually had some of the quietest nights out of everybody out there, and they've been rewarded with the top 5 positions. I cannot fathom how Colton Lane is 4th right now. I feel like he's been involved in at least 3 incidents tonight, and he's definitely picked up a lot of damage. So that he's up in 4th right now is definitely got to be more than he was expecting.
Yeah, and that car looks fairly cleanish. See how well it is with the one-to-go signal this time to reset. 14 to go when we go back green. O'Brien, Johnson, Daniels, Lane, Scotty Johnson, David Wilson, Eson Jr. Greg Corson is up to 8th. Kalen and Sumner round out the top 10. By the way, 3 of your top 10 cars are modifieds, so there is not only the battle for the win, but the battle for the modified class. Those take place here in Bristol. Here we go. Pace car ducks off. James O'Brien back on the gas. We're backing away.
He waited all the way for the green to come out there. I'm surprised that Johnson's actually not been able to get the jump on him.
Just have to get back up to the top side. Daniel's able to do so already. Scotty Johnson and Robert Bisson Jr. getting shuffled out. Top 5 now. O'Brien, Paul Johnson, Daniels, Lane, and Wilson Jr. all trying to chase down the number 9.
Drivers in the modified class and really getting caught out on the restarts and just not able to get the power down. Well, they're able to get what power they have down, but they just don't have the pace.
Caution is out, and a couple drivers will join the class. Derek Schilling with more damage to his car. 33rd spot. It's been a rough night for the 87. That time got door-to-door contact with Chad Brown down the straightaway.
Derek Schilling actually 99 laps down right now.
Give him credit, he came out after a full motor repair. He might have more damage on that car now, unfortunately, to the motor.
Yeah, he had pretty hard contact with the inside wall right there.
He's the last car running on track. And now, have to regroup. Under 10 to go and get back under green, and as mentioned, going to be tight, because if there's one more caution, it may come down to a time limit, give or take a couple less laps.
Yeah, and I think at this point, it's almost nailed on for James O'Brien right now. He just needs to get a good pull on the restart, get ahead of Paul Johnson as he gets down to turn 1, and that's pretty much going to be race over at that point.
Indeed. See if he elects to go with the same call again, though, Christian. Trying to wait for the green or going early, because the reason he's trying to stack the box again is to try and initiate tire spin, so to speak, or a stack-up effect, which can in turn make it tough for the cars around you to time it up, but also lead to potential trouble. So there is positives and negatives.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, that's why we do see that, especially at tracks like Bristol, Dover. Dover is a big one for that. We obviously see drivers wait an extremely long time. It's really, really difficult to get the power down at Dover, and we do see incidents, but we also do see drivers get big jumps because the other lane's struggling with wheel spin. But I think in his situation, he can afford to go early, just pull out a big jump and then just slot up into the top lane by the time he gets to turn.
Talk about big jumps. Here are some drivers who have jumped high up the board today, as we've seen 24 spots again for Wilson, where Corson is now up 19 spots after being one of the earlier caution flags. Sumner's up to 9th, plus 13. Albert is back in some of the top 10 as well. Rand's up 12, but several drivers with tough nights to begin their championship hopes for Season 4. Hawley minus 14, Harvey minus 15 after being the dominant car for the second half of this race. Several others outside that complexion as well with massive position losses.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, fortunately they do have a drop round, but at the same time, you don't want to take that in round one of a new season if you can help it. So obviously not the night that drivers like Richard Regan Jr. were looking for. This is not how you wanted to start a championship.
Go signal this time by end of longest line penalty given as well to Brendan Adams. He's controlled. Said in their meeting prior to tonight's race that they had made this rule stricter in terms of caution reviews, but suspensions stay in the same zone. To the restart zone we go. 7 laps to go from Bristol. Season opener for the PRL Cup Series 2020 Season 4. Stacks the box again. Johnson times it up perfect.
Yeah, really good jump by Johnson there. Oh, big right behind.
Greg Carson couldn't get up in the gas. They're wrecking as we're back on our caution. And that is a missed opportunity for Johnson because of that stack up.
Huge stack behind. Definitely looked like it started around about the... Yeah, right there you see Bison Jr. turning the car right in front of him and everybody just nowhere to go behind. 3 minutes left on the clock, right?
Just 3, wow. There may be only one last restart left if we're lucky, Christian, because of that caution.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the past couple of seasons. We've seen some quite interesting restarts. I think you'll agree. Sometimes we get that kind of drag race to the flag stand. Sometimes we get a one lap, and sometimes we get a proper green-white checkered. So at this point, hopefully we can actually rack off these last couple of regulation laps, but it is going to be very, very tight.
Coming up 4 laps to go this time. We do have one driver saying they have reached the incident limit. There was a 24-point incident limit. It can be something that you can reach at Bristol. It's something that's hard to reach though in PRL action. Unfortunately, Christopher Williams reached that from the top 12 in that stack up. And race control now telling all the drivers they will be right up against the time for this green.
Yeah, and I think we've mentioned a couple of times that sometimes the incident limit can come into play at these short tracks, and we have actually seen drivers reach that incident limit. But I think Bristol probably is one of those places where you would expect drivers to run into it if there are issues.
See how this plays out, because we could see several different factors pop up. The air drivers who have reached the incident limit from race control: Brett Adams, Robert Corzin, by the way, along with Chris Williams throughout the evening. Ready to go this time. Now the question is going to be if we get a 1-lap shootout, a 2-lap dash. This is going to be curious. Either way, O'Brien is in the driver's seat for this one, and not just figuratively, potentially literally for the win.
Yeah, I think as long as he gets a decent pull, I don't understand why he's not going early. I think this is the time. If there's any time, it's now. Just go early and get that big jump and get down to 1 in the lead. And you've pretty much got the race won, as we said. Obviously, not sure whether we're gonna get two laps on the green, 1 lap on the green. It's gonna be tight either way.
Race control has told the drivers if they get a 1-lap shootout, they will honor it. We are under a minute to go, estimated on the clock. We are also hearing, with 2 to go this time by on the racetrack. So we may get a race under the yellow flag to end it, or a finish. In fact, they just added a green-white checkered. Almost forgot about that feature with the 1GWC. And now they can finally double it.
We're actually going to see a proper green-white checkered as well, hopefully.
Now the matter is how many laps we get of this. We are hearing it was 15 seconds when the pace car came across the line, so it is likely a 1-lap dash to end this race. Here we go. O'Brien, Johnson, Daniels, and Lane. The top 4 cars. Pace car is off. This is for the win. Green flag is out. Final lap from Bristol.
And he didn't go early again, but Johnson made a mistake on the upshift, actually lost a huge amount of ground to him and able to let James O'Brien in by the time he got to turn 1.
The gap is big enough. James O'Brien starts off 2020 Season 4 with a W. He wins at Bristol to begin the season. Paul Johnson and Joshua Daniels round out the top 3, and they're crashing down the backstretch.
Got some post-race incidents going on the backstretch right now.
Leave volume on the drivers who accidentally hooked that car you seen back there. But what a job tonight by these drivers. And in the end, O'Brien is the man who has the cleanest car. Takes the stripe first as he takes an extra lap to make sure everything's good.
Just wanted to finish it out under a proper green-white checkered right there. Get that last lap in.
You want to make sure, right? At the fastest lap of the race, Florida Club driver starts off the season with a victory. Had 2 last season. What a job by him tonight. It's all set to burn things on down. He starts off the year right. For athlete Booker, team hype. Post-race coverage coming up. Right after this, you're watching GSRC for coverage of the PRL Cup Series as Johnson takes a bow with him. Welcome back to the virtual Bristol Motor Speedway for post-race coverage of the Precision Racing League Cup Series. The season opener for 2020 Season 4, sponsored by WEBB Hearing Centers and ButtKicker. Justin Prince alongside Christian Chowder and Sean Ambrose in the director's seat to take a look at your unofficial race results. James O'Brien takes home the checker flag to begin the campaign by 2/10 over Paul Johnson. Joshua Daniels finished in third, with Colton Lane recovering from early troubles to P4. What a run for David Wilson Jr., one of his best finishes this year in PRL competition, in fifth, with Scotty Johnson in sixth in the modified. Charles Sumner finished second in the modified class, seventh overall, to ninth in the 98, 1.2 seconds back with Mark Kalin, Robert Bisson Jr., and what a job for Keith Haney to recover from an early stack-up incident for a top 10 run tonight.
Brian Abbott, one of our new members to the league, he comes home in 11th place. That's a solid start to his time in this league. Bradley Hawley, we saw him fighting for the victory near the beginning of the race, unfortunately got involved in that incident. Then able to recover, but still not what he would have wanted with that P12. Adam Zemke, he comes home 13th. Doyle Lawrence had some interesting incidents tonight. He was spun around quite a few times, but ends up plus 13 with P14 at the end of the night. Chad Brown, another driver with a big move, up 15 spots to finish in P15th. Patrick Cowgill was involved in some incidents as well, comes home in 16th. Pat Harvey, he dominated the second half of the race, but had that incident all by himself on that race restart, and unfortunately only able to come home in 17th. Greg Corenz in 18th, and then first car off the lead lap, James Haney, 2 laps down in 19th, with Christopher Williams 8 laps down in 20th.
Reached the incident limit while Ronald Overbay finished 8 laps down as well in 21st. Brandon Adams 11 laps down 22nd, along with James Stewart and Brendan Shatley. James Duke finished 15 laps down a rough night for the 76th and 25th, with Jose Medina in 26th. Your pole sitter was a leader and a strong car early, then lap traffic happened. Finishes 23 laps down, 27th after having to get massive suspension repairs done, just ahead of Baron Hilton, who finished 28th. Richard Reagan Jr., your defending 3-time champion, going to have to use a drop likely in the first race of the season. He finishes 29th. Brett Adams, Robert Corzin, Derek Schilling, George Schwartz round out your starters, with Stacy Hunter rounding out your drivers on the racetrack tonight. Stacy Hunter, a DNS. But one team ended up coming away with the checker flag. It just so happened to be one which dominated the team standings last year. Different name, same performance. Athlete Booker Team Hype starts off their second series season of competition with the W. James, how does it feel to win at Bristol?
Pretty good. It was kind of a surprise there. I usually do pretty well at Bristol, but never win, so I was pretty happy with that.
Let's talk about how you tried to play this race out, because it looked like a tough one, of course, to pass, but also a tough one to try and plot out. How do you get the track position?
Oh yeah, I obviously didn't qualify at the very front, so I had to sit in third or fourth most of the race, but I kind of just waited for most of them to use their tires up, and then I could kind of get up there and challenge, but it was impossible to pass. There was nothing you could really do about it. You could get a lap car as a pick, but a lot of the lap cars were not really cooperating. They don't really have to, but that was probably the most challenging part, trying to make your way through traffic. Honestly, I think I just got the luck of the draw getting through some of those wrecks. I got through 2 wrecks with probably a hair of space on both sides of the car and didn't get any damage, so I was pretty happy with that.
Now, the next race goes back to the 1.5 miles. There are plenty of them in this season's campaign. Your thoughts on Las Vegas?
I did really well at Chicago, and Las Vegas is pretty similar to that, so I look forward to it. I like those big, fast tracks. I mean, I'm not a fan of the package the car has with the downforce and the low horsepower, but usually racing at those tracks are pretty fun. Hopefully we get strung out a little bit, though.
Who do you want to thank for your run tonight?
Richard, for helping out in practice like usual. It seems like every time he wrecks or gets into trouble, I kind of take over. It's like 3 for 3 now. Every time he's DNF'd, I've won, so that's kind of weird. Athlete Booker Team Hype. We got a lot of big things coming this year. We've been talking over the off season, so that would be a lot of cool things coming this way with us. millionautos.com for auto parts and all that, and Moto Million for motorcycle parts, Road Trip Transport, and you guys for putting on the broadcast as usual.
Congratulations on the win tonight. What a job tonight by you.
Thanks, Justin.
James O'Brien takes home the checker flag to begin the season, but there was also a second man during burnouts tonight. Some drivers and some fans are saying it's a win that he wasn't in trouble, but it's one of his best finishes of the year in PRL competition. Little in the past couple of years. Paul Johnson says hello to Kristen Challoner.
Paul, that looked like that was a really kind of rough race right there, but you were able to come through from 16th to finish second. Can you tell us how you managed to do that?
Missing the cautions. I mean, that was really it. There were a bunch of wrecks in front of me, just getting through them safely. I mean, some of it was luck. Some of it was, that last one where can't remember who it was, got loose and just clipped me as I went down low to get underneath him. That could have been a lot worse. So there was definitely some luck there. But I think just avoiding the being clean, avoiding the wrecks and running that high line. I wasn't good enough to really pass anybody on the low side. So just staying on that high line, keeping your position and waiting for the people in front of you to mess up is really what it was the whole race for me. So.
You definitely did a great job of that, and obviously we saw you running around in that kind of group of the top five. There's kind of that group of three of you for quite a long time. James O'Brien, yourself, and Joshua Daniels were kind of really stuck together for a vast portion of the second half of the race. And we saw at the end, obviously restarting on the outside, you kind of had James on your inside, and he was holding the restarts quite late on, and there was quite a few times where it looked like you had enough to maybe challenge him into one, but kind of looked like he always sort of had it just about covered off. Do you think that there was any kind of chance that you could have maybe got around him for the win?
Yeah. I mean, James and I are good friends. We've been racing together for since I think season 2. So, the restarts, we'll just leave it at we've been friends for a long time. So, I wasn't gonna try to push the issue. I was happy with the second place. We've been buddies for a really, really long time. So, in fact, he's actually worked for me for a while last year too. So, yeah. So I just wasn't going to push the issue.
That definitely makes more sense now, because there was a couple of times, man, where I was like, he's got the run. He could definitely try this if he wants to, and then there was always the space for James to kind of slide up in front. But still, as you say, you got to be really happy with that second place finish, right?
Oh, I was excited, super excited with it, especially with, this week, I live down in Mobile. We had that hurricane come through, and I was up in West Virginia. So we didn't get home till late yesterday, I think. And then we had stuff going on today, and, I just wasn't able to I usually like to put in a little bit of practice, and really wasn't able to do much of anything but get in the race and race. So, it was, for that, it was definitely a good race for me. And like I said, second place there, I just want to make no mistakes, and that's why I was celebrating at the end, because I've got to rain on James' parade anytime I can. So
well, it's definitely good to see you able to actually race, and especially with the kind of conditions, and then able to come home in second. So that's definitely a great result. And maybe we'll see you kind of up there challenging for some wins kind of later in the season too. But before we let you go, is there anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to tonight?
Definitely give a shout out to, well, I don't know if they watch a lot, but my family, because they, I've got 2 young kids and the wife, and they let me do this every Sunday night and Wednesday night for the trucks. Thank you. Shout out to Richard Reagan and James, running with them tonight. Richard has some bad luck, but running with them always makes me push a little bit better, a little bit harder. And Road Trip Transport, I sponsor, which is, it's kind of a shout out to myself. It's my company, but give them somewhat of a shout out as well. So, and you guys, I love going back and watching the races afterwards. You do a great job, so we do appreciate it. And I'm just glad I finally get a high enough finish here to actually get an interview. So, yeah, it was a great race, and very happy with the outcome there. And I I took a year off to start this company, so I've been out of practice, and it's been a little bit rough getting the rust shaken off. New tire model came out. I haven't raced on it, and you saw last season was, I was kind of a mid-pack kind of guy, and I'm hoping to change that and get back into the groove of things here as now that I've got the company up and running, I can actually race again. So yeah, hopefully you'll see me up here some more.
Well, definitely glad to hear you come along and actually kind of get back into the feel of things. And thank you for coming and chatting with us. Definitely appreciate it. And hopefully we get some more opportunities to do so over the course of the season.
I sure as heck hope so. Maybe one of these times I won't be so nice to James, and you can interview me first.
Let's count on that, man. I'll keep you to that word.
All right, thank you guys.
Again, that's Paul Johnson, P2 tonight. P3 made it a 1-3 for Athlete Booker Team Hype. Joshua Daniels now standing by with me. Josh, how do you feel about how things went tonight with that new look Chevrolet and a decent run overall with your top 5 all night?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank AthleteBooker.com and SimRaps for giving me that beautiful car you guys seen tonight. I did the best I could do to keep it as pretty as I could, man. I mean, there were some big wrecks I had to miss out there. I know you guys probably saw a couple of those.
Yeah, how tricky was it to stay out of the trouble? Pardon me.
The guys up front raced really clean, and some of the lap cars we came to, it kind of seemed like guys didn't know whether they need to go low or need to go high or whatever, so you just had to be real careful, and I feel really lucky to get through the things that I got through, to tell you the truth. I still had the car that I had at the end.
Indeed, what do you feel it would have took for you to be the Athlete Booker car to take the checker flag tonight?
I just put some VHT on that bottom line down there so we could actually pass it this track would be one thing. And but I had a little bit more damage. Maybe if I didn't have the damage, I probably could have tried to go for those guys. They were a little off the pace there at the end, it seemed. But, hey, third, I can't ask for any better than that. My teammate won the race, and that's got to be looking good for us in the standings.
Next race goes to Las Vegas to try to build the momentum off from that good start for the standings. Your thoughts? Back to the mile and a half again.
Yeah, man, it's going to feel good to be able to stretch my legs again, and just going to do a bunch of laps and hope I'm fast enough by the end of the week,
Indeed. Anyone you want to thank for your run once again tonight?
Once again, I'd like to thank SimRaps for that car you guys saw, and I'd like to thank Athlete Booker for coming aboard for season 4, and everybody for having a good, clean race out there tonight.
Congratulations on the top 3 run tonight, Josh.
Okay, thank you.
Joshua Daniels, third tonight. I'd like to thank him, Paul Johnson, and James O'Brien for taking the time to speak with us during post-race coverage. Now, Christian, it had some great long runs. It had some absolute pandemonium incidents, and it had everything else in between. What were your thoughts and takes from the first race of the season?
I think it was pretty much a typical Bristol race, if I'm honest. As you say, there were some long runs. There was some definitely not long runs, and obviously we saw some issues with getting around lap cars and whatnot, and not to discredit any lap cars, but just traffic is a big deal at Bristol. It's always kind of what facilitates passes, especially with the top line being so dominant. So I think really we saw a very typical Bristol race here tonight, and the big thing that stood out to me was so many of the contenders kind of having some big issues. Obviously we saw Richard Regan Jr. He had really a night to forget. So Pat Harvey lose that nearly certain win, and that's really going to sting for a long time, I think. And then obviously you saw Bradley Hawley have incidents as well. So a lot of drivers that we tend to see right at the front of the field having some really rough nights. So they're going to be taking the drop week very, very early on. But we did have some really good runs for guys that we don't always see at the front. Obviously we saw David Wilson taking home a top 5. So that was great to see. And I do think that races like this do bring out some opportunities for guys that might not maybe be able to contend on pace, but or if they're able to be smart, avoid the wrecks and whatnot, they can get a pretty good result out of it.
As mentioned, though, the next race is, to remind you again, at Las Vegas. That race will be after the majors, essentially around the same time, I should say, as the major series. Your thoughts on what these drivers, though, will expect come going to Las Vegas for another mile and a half?
Well, it's almost the exact opposite of Bristol, to be honest with you. I mean, Bristol, very challenging track, very difficult to drive. Obviously, the high power, low downforce car tends to really kind of sort people out in terms of skill level. Definite huge amount of skill separation at a track like Bristol. And then we kind of go to Las Vegas, where it's a little bit kind of the opposite, unfortunately. Very, very high speeds, not much lifting at all. It's the high downforce package, low power, so we're going to see a lot of pack racing when we go there, and that's going to be very, very different. There's still a skill set to it, absolutely, but it's a completely different one to what we saw here tonight.
Of course, it's going to be a very jam-packed night on GSRC, to say the very least, but take this time once again to thank everyone for tuning in for tonight's exciting race, once again from Bristol, to start off 2020 Season 4, chance for the overall 2020 championship. I'd also like to thank Charles Sumner and the rest of the Precision Racing League for organizing this drawn series, as well as its sponsors once again to start off the campaign, WEBB Hearing Centers and ButtKicker. Take this time as well to thank the companies that provide the software and hardware for broadcast listed up on screen. Additional thanks go to Jude Lalonde, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team once more, Christian Challenger and Sean Ambrose. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including its upcoming races, you can find it at GlobalSimRacingChannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at GSRC.StoreandV1.com. Or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, one word, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss a moment here on the Global SimRacing Channel. As mentioned, the next race will be at Las Vegas Motor Speedway on September the 27th. Fasten your seatbelts. It's expected to be an interesting race as we go mile and a half racing with a 550 horsepower package. Be sure to tune in. Coverage starts at approximately, once more, 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. The race will begin at 9:05 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed up on your screen as well, so be sure to check those out and mark them down your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.